In the annals of cinematic history, few films capture the raw essence of inspiration, youth, and the quiet undercurrents of human fragility quite like Dead Poets Society. Released in a time when coming-of-age stories were evolving from mere adolescent escapades to profound explorations of the soul, this Peter Weir-directed masterpiece brought together a cast of young talents under the magnetic guidance of Robin Williams. Among those impressionable actors was Ethan Hawke, then just an 18-year-old navigating the treacherous waters of early fame. Looking back decades later, Hawke offers a poignant, unvarnished glimpse into the man behind the laughter, the inimitable Robin Williams, revealing signs of a profound emotional complexity that simmered beneath his exuberant exterior long before the world learned of his tragic end. Hawke's recollections transport us straight to the set in 1988, a period when the air was thick with the scent of autumn leaves in Delaware, where the Welton Academy scenes were meticulously crafted. As Todd Anderson, the shy newcomer whose arc embodies the film's central theme of seizing the day, Carpe Diem, Hawke was thrust into a whirlwind of intellectual fervor orchestrated by Williams' portrayal of John Keating, the unorthodox English teacher who awakens dormant passions in his students. Off-screen, Williams was no less a force of nature. His improvisational genius turned mundane downtime into uproarious spectacles. Picture this. Between takes, as the crew wrapped up a particularly grueling scene of poetic recitation, Williams would launch into spontaneous monologues, weaving in references from Shakespeare to stand-up routines he'd honed in San Francisco's comedy clubs. The young cast, Hawke, Robert Sean Leonard, Josh Charles and others, would dissolve into fits of laughter, their adolescent tensions momentarily alleviated by this whirlwind of wit. It was as if Williams carried a portable sun, illuminating the often somber atmosphere of filmmaking, where long hours and repeated lines could drain the spirit. Yet even in those luminous moments, Hawke sensed shadows lurking. Coming from a family lineage marked by the insidious grip of depression, he possessed an innate radar for its subtle manifestations. Depression, as Hawke would later articulate in various interviews and writings, is not always a thunderous storm but often a persistent fog, muting colors and weighing down the simplest joys. His own relatives had battled this invisible adversary, sharing stories of days lost to bedsheets and nights haunted by unspoken sorrows. This personal lens sharpened Hawke's observations on set. While others reveled in Williams' charisma, Hawke perceived the effort it demanded. All that power and that charisma came at a certain cost, he would reflect, his voice carrying the weight of hindsight. Williams, the man who could mimic 1,000 voices and contort his face into expressions of pure hilarity, was, in Hawke's estimation, a deeply, deeply sensitive person who was highly attuned to the energy of a room. This hypersensitivity, a double-edged sword, allowed him to connect profoundly with audiences and co-stars alike, but it also left him vulnerable to the emotional crosswinds that others might shrug off. One incident stands out in Hawke's memory, a quiet epiphany amid the chaos of production. During a lively improv session, perhaps after a take where Williams ad-libbed a hilarious ode to the absurdity of Latin conjugations, the room erupted in applause. Williams, basking in the glow of approval, seemed invincible, his eyes sparkling with the thrill of creation. Laughter echoed off the faux ivy-covered walls of the set, a temporary balm for the rigors of the day. But as the energy ebbed, Hawke slipped away to fetch a glass of water from the craft services table. In the dim corner of the soundstage, partially shrouded by equipment carts and forgotten props, he spotted Williams. Alone. The man who had just commanded the room's joy was now hunched in solitude, his silhouette a stark contrast to the vivacity he'd exuded moments before. No spotlight, no audience, just the unfiltered self retreating into darkness. Hawke paused, the plastic cup forgotten in his hand, struck by the raw authenticity of the scene. "I thought, oh okay. It makes a lot more sense to me now," he recalled. In that instant, the puzzle pieces aligned. The boundless energy was not effortless. It was a deliberate performance, a shield against the tempests within. This revelation didn't shatter Hawke's admiration. If anything, it deepened it. Williams' ability to compartmentalize, to summon levity on demand while privately wrestling with inner turmoil, spoke to a resilience that Hawke would come to admire in his own life's pursuits, be it directing indie films like Blaze or penning novels that probe the human condition. The comedian's struggles were emblematic of a broader archetype, the sad clown, a trope as old as literature itself, from the melancholic jesters in Shakespeare's courts to the tormented troubadours of modern vaudeville. Williams embodied this archetype with heartbreaking authenticity. His career, spanning from the manic energy of Mork and Mindy to the tender vulnerability in Good Will Hunting, showcased a performer who thrived on giving, pouring his essence into roles that healed others while perhaps exacerbating his own wounds. Hawke's family history with depression lent him a unique empathy. He understood that such conditions aren't chosen but inherited, amplified by the relentless scrutiny of fame. Hollywood, with its feast or famine cycles and superficial validations, could exacerbate these vulnerabilities, turning personal battles into public spectacles. Reflecting on how this knowledge alters his viewing of Dead Poets Society, Hawke is unequivocal. It does not fundamentally change the way I watch the movie. For him, the film's magic endures, untarnished by tragedy. When he presses play, it's not the shadow of 2014 that overlays the screen but the vibrant spirit of 1988, the man who encouraged a generation to suck out all the marrow of life, as Thoreau urged through Keating's lips. Hawke sees Williams not as a cautionary tale but as a testament to endurance. The end of his life does not define his life to me, he asserts, emphasizing the man's capacity to weather that storm of his psyche for us and for other people. This perspective is a quiet rebellion against reductionism, refusing to let a single devastating act eclipse a lifetime of brilliance. It's a reminder that art, like life, is multifaceted. Williams' contributions, his advocacy for mental health awareness posthumously through his widow Susan Schneider's revelations about Lewy body dementia, continue to ripple outward, fostering conversations that might spare others his fate. Delving deeper into the thematic resonance,